Day after day, Shaka went without sleep. He moved from camp to camp, training and coaxing his army, showing his regiments this and that of battle. Sometimes he called by name those in the regiments he knew. Sometimes he took a shield from a feeble hand and challenged the opponent to a mock battle. In all this, Shaka's heart still bled with old grudges. He still remembered those who had humiliated him. One day, he spoke openly to his regiments and said, "Your readiness for battle fills me with joy. Yet for now, I want to tell you tales in broad daylight." Many were eager to hear the story of his life. For to many, he was like a hero of fantastic legends. His former enemies lived in fear. Often in gatherings, he would spell out their names. Shaka began his story. He spoke of the unhappy events of his youth. He spoke of Hubu, who humiliated him before a group of women. He spoke of his clansmen, who denied him their kinship. He told them of the crimes of his cousins of Emalangeni. He spelled out the name of the evil woman who denied them water. Thus, one incident led to another in quick succession. The victim, our forefathers say, never forgets. He laughed mockingly as he watched the terrified eyes of his old enemies. This is no tale like the tales of old. The perpetrators of these crimes still live. Alas, such a tale is devoid of its true ending. The evil men seem never to have been punished. Thus, it is necessary to provide the final episodes. Generations hereafter should say, indeed, this is how such a story should end. I have summoned a witness so that I may not err. He pointed to an old man who staggered with age. His hair was white like the winter flowers on the mountainside. Slowly he named them one by one, not sparing even those who were the former king's counselors. Shaka ordered them to come forward and stand before the assembly. Among them was a counselor, Mpembi, who once called his family the cow's children. Also was the diviner, who fomented the hostilities against them. There too was the man who had sought the former king's favor by spreading scandalous rumors against Nandi. I only did it, my lord, to please those who sent me, those who hated you and the mother of our nation. Shaka shouted at him angrily, demanding the names of those men. Trembling, the counselor spurted out even the names of those who were dead. Seeing the men so overwhelmed with fear, Shaka laughed and said, "Did you let these evil men destroy the reputation of our nation? Did you sleep in peace while a woman wandered in the wilderness?" The man was quiet, knowing these barbed words challenged his own role. Shaka finally said, "Whoever does not intervene in such cruelties only spreads the disease of his own cowardice. Such a man is not a man. He destroys the reputation and pride of our nation. You too are guilty with all your masters." He directed the young men to round up all the culprits. I have long dreamt of a day like this, to avenge myself against the vermin that cursed my youth. If any among you still has something to say, let him speak now before his sun sets. My lord, it is hard to serve faithfully one's king, commented the counselor. Yet it is clear a man must pay for his past judgment. Such a man is swept away by the rivers of time. We too, father of our nation, share in such a fate. Our deeds deserve the punishment designed for us by history. I hold no grudge against my king. To those who shall live hereafter, I ask them to serve our king faithfully, nor should they look down on us who failed. A great error is best understood by those who are not of it. Long may you live, my lord. Live to give the best of our nation. The words of this old man moved Shaka deeply, but he did not show it. for a ruler must rarely show his feelings. He said, the words would have been welcomed had they been uttered wisely at the right moment. But today, they have lost their meaning. Indeed, they are bitter, as though meant to buy a reputation. I have one word to say. May they be fulfilled, as from the speaker's own lips. Yet anyone is guilty who speaks only after the events. He turned to those in the assembly and said, perhaps you feel the sad fate of these men. One of the king's counselors, who was respected throughout the land, stood up and said, my lord, by the right of the assembly and the ancient laws of our forefathers, permit me to speak. I was there when these things happened. It was I who opposed the evil talk against the Princess Nandi. Then I lost the respect of many in the assembly. I know these people and all their past crimes. Yet I believe it was for the king they did these things. I did then, and still now, blame the king, your father. Silence fell on the assembly, as though his words had violated some ancient sacred code. But to this, he paid no attention. Instead, he continued. The crimes of the powerful fall on the shoulders of the weak. It is you who see further than tomorrow, whose judgment must accord with the truth of our times. Shaka concentrated his mind in silence. Finally, he said, I thank you for these words. You are truly a man of greatness, but my conscience troubles me. If a nation surrenders its ancestral powers to its rulers, shall it not lose the essence of its nationhood? Surely, blaming its king and its rulers is not enough. Thus, I do not take your argument, Father, however persuasive. I do not seek to avenge myself or my mother, but that we should maintain some laws to create a great nation. No nation survives only through its weapons. A nation's true greatness begins from little truths. Those who came hereafter must learn these events. Self-serving men eventually destroy great nations. His face was contorted in anger, and his voice lost its mellowness. I forgive you only because of the great tasks before us. A new season must be fertilized by old leaves. After this event, Shaka and Mgobozi sat discussing future plans. Mgobozi said to the king, this is how I see things, my lord. If we start off with the weaker nations and overwhelm them, we shall augment the regiments of our Zulu army. My thoughts focus on those of Abasemelangeni, who live in fear of their old crimes against the king. The guilty often split their ranks. Terrified at the specter of their crimes, in panic, they point their fingers at whoever is suspect. For all this, they are easiest to overcome. In truth, the whole of Nguniland shall support your campaign. But for us, my lord, the secret shall be to give fighting experience to our army. The last words hit home in Shaka's mind. As though roused to some exciting venture, his eyes moved with new warmth. Your thoughts coincide with mine, Mgobozi. My heart still bleeds when I recall how they sang brutal songs against our family and held us to ridicule. Let our forces surround them by night. Let them be greeted at dawn by the angry eyes of our army. It must be the Ufusimba and the Amawombe regiments that should lead the attack. Let the two horns, the old and the young, balance each other. Amawombe have many times faced enemies in battle. Ufusimba regiment is young and full of battle eagerness. In the middle of the darkest night, the regiments listened to Shaka as he enumerated in whispers their routes. He emphasized the need for swiftness in their actions, ordering them to advance cautiously until they reached the gates. The combined forces would then split in half, rushing on either side. Finally, they would encamp on the higher ground and guard the smaller gates. The great night swallowed the shadows of the regiments. Only the rhythms of their footfalls echoed in the river. Sometimes they walked on the anthills, leaving their imprints and broken ants. They climbed the little hill, approaching the Abasamalangeni, and there began to split, forming their strategic movements. Shaka sat waiting until he heard the last cock crowing. He raised his head and saw the large villages of the Abasamalangeni clan. The sun spread its light from the night into the earth. A crimson ribbon hung all around the horizon. The eagle, disturbed from its night of peace, hovered high over the neighboring mountains, as though to spy out those who should fill the earth. The old dog flopped its ears near the cattle fold, casting its eyes and peering at the rising shadows. The Zulu army rose with the morning star. It was as though they awaited the butterflies of dawn to see them fly in all directions and colors. The glimmering spears caught the light of the sun. Young men leaped like flashes of lightning from fence to fence. The sons of Sokulu skirted their way to the dark side of the village. There they combined with the forces of Gubeza of the sideboards. The grounds of Abasamalangeni screamed with frightened beasts. People were suddenly awoken from their sleep. Slowly the mist of night fell from their eyes. A woman was heard, her voice wailing to the skies. The Fosimba regiment and Amawombe regiment still waited silently. Shaka, the son of Senzangakona, shouted out their names, saying, "Come out! I have arrived. I said long ago, I shall be back." Silwane, the son of Zagila, shall prod your memories. It was he who scolded Sompisi of Vuma as they mocked us. It was the same Sompisi who called out to me once, "How can a thing like you return against us?" Those who know of these events must save your homes. I mean you, and you, and you, and you too, Mageza. As he spoke, Shaka pointed at them with his spear handle. Those who once harassed and humiliated him now wept before him, begging for mercy. They wished the earth's numerous dungeons could swallow them whole. Shaka looked at them steadily and finally said, "How despicable a bunch of cowards you are. Who would have guessed you would crawl and beg for your lives? Even if I were to forgive you for your crimes, I would be revolted by your endless pleas and appeals. For this you shall surely die. Look your last at the sun. Tell me before you die, why did I deserve such cruelty?" He spoke, looking at each of them as though on the verge of tears. They garbled words which neither they nor he could understand. One of them spoke clearly and said, "As for me, I did only what I was directed to do. I feared the anger of those older than me." Shaka smiled, as if about to laugh, and said, "Yes, it is so. I remember how you feared bodily harm. You whimpered and fled at the very sound of the whiplash. You begged your age mates to let you stay while they challenged others. I do forgive you, but I shall teach you how to be brave. You shall learn how great a burden is cowardice. At the very first battle we shall fight, it is you who shall be posted at its mouth." He spoke as if he was only making fun of him, but he meant it. Those condemned were led to the place of execution and knocked senseless with a gigantic club and thrown to the vultures. After this, a cleansing feast was held. The general announced, "The king commands the old grudges be forgotten. Eat and drink, for indeed you are the king's relations." As he spoke, Shaka wandered through the fields with his followers. He gestured and commented on the landmarks of his days of youth. Great pains keep the memory fresh. Many danced, celebrating the era of Shaka's return. How strange are people and their moods. Often they sing and dance only to hide their fears. The Abasamalangeni danced the great dance of healing. In tribute to them, the whole country echoed with festivities. When all had feasted to their heart's content, the commander-in-chief summoned home all the Zulu regiments. Among the Abasamalangeni clan, Shaka left a commander. His task was to teach the new methods of warfare. Henceforth, they were to boast the great short spear of Notumeshes. From a distance could be seen the Zulu army departing. Young men looked with envy at the singing regiments. They too wished they could belong to the growing Zulu army. The commander posted there infused in them the heroic spirit. Tomorrow, it shall be you who shall be the nation's heroes. You too shall be the great king's favorites. But for now, you must train without ceasing. Never wake up at the last crowing of the cock. Our bodies must come out to the sun. On them it must flow like water. As he spoke, a poet's voice declaimed from a distance. His words reverberated into the distant valleys. Great One, who is eternally on the lips of the woman of Nomgabi. They endlessly gossiped. Shaka shall never rule. He shall never be king. But it was then he grew up to overwhelm the earth.
Umuntu yakhola sethe sangoma likhulu idlozi.